Hi guys, I'm Matt Schlicht with ZapChain, and I'm here with Chris Shepard, CEO of HashRabbit.
Hello.
He is an expert at all things Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining can be a super complicated subject, but Chris is going to explain it so that we understand it now. So welcome. Thank you for helping us with the Bitcoin course.
No problem. Hello.
So tell us a little bit about HashRabbit.
So what HashRabbit does is we basically build tools for developers to build on top of Bitcoin mining. So Bitcoin miners have better tools.
Which is awesome. You guys will understand exactly what that means in a second, hopefully. So I think the first question, and I think a lot of people think about this, is, is Bitcoin secure? Like, should I be using my credit card? Or is Bitcoin somehow better than that? What makes Bitcoin secure?
So the thing that makes Bitcoin so special is that it's basically, one, because it's decentralized, but the thing that makes it decentralized and makes it secure is that there are computers that are solving really hard math problems that allow them to verify transactions without a middleman inside. Basically, if I was going to send money to you, I would have to go through a bank, and then somebody at the bank would have to approve it, and then they would be able to give it to you, and then they take a fee. But with Bitcoin, I can send you directly without any kind of interference. But the thing that verifies that is a Bitcoin miner, and those guys are incentivized to verify the transaction for us.
And so the Bitcoin miner is like an actual computer.
Yeah, so Bitcoin, I would say a Bitcoin mining rig is the actual computer, and then the miner, I guess I'm referring to as the person, the owner of the mining rigs.
Right.
So that's how I would, but yeah, so the thing that makes it so secure is that these guys are basically verifying all of these transactions that go through, and to kind of go into a little bit more detail on it, it's we basically, anytime a transaction goes through, I'm incentivized to verify your transaction based on what the fee you provided me. So you can send a 0% fee if you want, or you can add something higher. And depending on what the incentive is, I'm going to go after the one that's probably the most that provided the most amount of fees.
Right.
But as well as I would receive a block reward. So it used to be 50 Bitcoins for every block, and a block is generated every 10 minutes. So in every 10 minutes, a new block is generated with all the transactions that are inside of that block. So in that time, every single time the block is opened, you get 25 Bitcoins, as well as the transaction fees that are inside of it. So 1,000 transactions that went through, if maybe 1 Bitcoin in total was the fee, then that gets dispersed to all the different miners for contributing to helping solve that block.
Right. So for Bitcoin, there's Bitcoin, the currency, right? And that's what's being transacted. And then there's Bitcoin, the blockchain, which is kind of the ledger that is keeping track of the transactions. So, how exactly does the blockchain work? And have we ever had something like this before?
So what the blockchain is just a public ledger, which just has all the transactions on it. So essentially, if you had 10 Bitcoin, I had 5 Bitcoin, what we would be able to do is you would take, if I sent you one of those Bitcoin, it would be able to go and it would switch to, I would basically have 6 Bitcoin, you would have 9 Bitcoin, and then what we could do is it would be put on the public ledger every single time. But what happens is that transaction gets put inside, it basically gets piled up together with a bunch of different transactions. But what that blockchain essentially is a system the same thing that banks use, where it's just where they just see transactions going through, but nobody can see it. So this one's just a public ledger, a public receipt that everybody can see, and that essentially leads into going into what every time that a transaction goes through, in a 10-minute span, it gets accumulated inside of what is called a block. And a block is essentially just a really hard mathematical problem that a bunch of these mining rigs, what they do is a bunch of these machines, they're just doing billions of calculations every second, and they're just they're brute forcing the answer, which essentially means I'm just guessing until somebody figures it out.
Right.
So once this block, so that's what a block is, and the block is generated every 10 minutes. And so every time all the transactions get inside of that block, after all those miners figure out the really hard math problem, it opens up the block. There is usually a reward that they will receive for actual Bitcoin, and then there's a reward for transaction fees. Currently, transaction fees are not very much, so a lot of the incentive goes towards the actual block reward. It used to be 50. It halves every 4 years, so it goes to 25, then it's going to go to 12 and a half, then it's going to go, yeah. So, so what the block, every time a block is opened up, right now, it just starts over with another block again. And so none of the miners can actually solve this. They can't solve the next problem. They always have to solve the current block. So there's no going ahead and there's no going back. Everybody has to do the same math problem, and that makes everything a lot more fair because everybody has to do the same things. But and it's more of a guessing game, so it becomes a lot more random of who's allowed to or who actually can generate these coins. So eventually when everything diminishes, the transaction fees are probably going to be the primary thing. But currently, that's, I would say, the description of the blockchain. And it's just a bunch of transactions about that.
So the block is a group of Bitcoin transactions. What happened, and then miners, which are the computers, or the mining rigs, I guess, operated by the miners. They are using their processing power to solve these problems via brute force. Mm-hmm. And then once they solve it, then the block is open and 25 Bitcoins is distributed to everybody that helped solve that?
Right, not automatically, but yeah.
So then what, the transactions that are in that block, what's different about them once the block is solved? Like, what does that mean for the transactions?
Okay. So this is where nodes would come in, but when I want to send you the transaction, what happens is because Bitcoin is public and everybody gets to see it, everybody has the blockchain on their wallet, on their own system. What happens is the first thing that happens is it verifies if our transaction is a real transaction. Is this is someone trying to fake a transaction and do something they're not supposed to? And so what nodes do is they verify the transaction from multiple parties. So there could be somebody in China, there could be somebody 3 miles away, there could be anywhere, and one of the nodes will verify this transaction is real. And it usually is about 8 verifications before it's just like, okay, this is a valid transaction. This transaction is okay to go inside of a block. And so once it's verified that this is a valid transaction and it's okay for miners to mine it and everything, then that's when it gets accumulated inside of a block. And once the miners actually crack open the block and everything, and then they actually verify the transactions by taking the transaction fees, that's confirming the transaction, and that is officially putting it on the ledger, where it's just like, this is a real transaction, this happened, it is done, you have my money, I have less money now, and that's...
And the world is a better place. Yeah. So then nodes, though, how are they different from mining rigs? Like, is it still a computer? Like, can I run a node?
You can run a node if you download the Bitcoin Core wallet application on your Mac or Windows or whatever that works with everything. You can host a node by just keeping the app open, but you're not incentivized like a miner to receive a reward for doing it. But you are contributing to helping the network become more secure because there's now more people or more computers verifying that there's all the transactions that are going on the network are real.
So I can just feel better about myself.
Yeah, that you're contributing.
So are mining rigs, do they also count as nodes?
Mining rigs currently don't count as nodes. And it also depends on what the mining rig is, because a lot of the mining rig. So originally it started as CPU processing, your processor,
which would be like the same thing that if I wanted to play like a really good video game on my computer, like that's what would power that.
Well, the processor would probably. Let's say this: the processor is the brain of your computer.
Right. A
graphics card is the one who will render all of the graphics and stuff. So when it evolved into graphics cards, that's what you want to use.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. So CPU, GPU, kind of, yeah. But yeah, so originally you could mine with your laptop, and then eventually you could use your graphics card, and then so now you're able to do transactions you'll be able to do guesses way faster than everybody else, and then it eventually evolved into these dedicated chips. They're ASICs, application-specific integrated circuits. They're basically chips that are specifically made just for Bitcoin, nothing else, to hash the algorithm that it's trying to solve the complex math problems. And those guys basically, those guys are innovating more than anything else, because it's because now it only does one thing instead of a computer processor, that can do a lot of different things. So,
are they a lot better?
They're way, way better. Like, if you look at the chart of the difficulty going up, it's just like.
So that's actually a good point. So people talk about Bitcoin difficulty quite a bit. You should explain exactly what that is.
Okay. The difficulty is a little hard to explain, so I'm going to try to explain it in the easiest way possible. But
they are so happy you just said that.
So the difficulty is based off of so the thing that keeps miners from just keeping making these amazing hardware, and that can just, because what would happen is, if we wanted to make the best, take a quantum computer or something, or a supercomputer, and I wanted to put it on the Bitcoin network, and then you're just like, oh, somebody can break the Bitcoin network and just make the difficulty go up, and they can get all the rewards and all this stuff, and it's like, that's actually not. So Bitcoin makes it really easy, where it's like, okay, this guy just invented something brand new, some brand new technology, and this thing is going to skyrocket, and he's going to make all the Bitcoins because he's going to solve everything way faster than everybody else.
Right.
So what happens is the difficulty is based off of every couple of weeks. It's like it's usually supposed to be every 14 days. It doesn't really do that as much anymore, but it's usually in that range. And so every 14 days, the difficulty realigns. And what that means is, if that guy basically turns it on, all his units on, and the difficulty's like boop, then what would happen is, in 2 weeks, the difficulty would readjust and saying, hey, this guy's solving all the blocks in 6 minutes instead of 10 minutes. He's solving them way faster. So what we need to do is the protocol basically just readjusts and basically says, okay, this is the amount of power that's coming through. We're going to readjust it, so now it takes 10 minutes again. So this guy just invented this whole new thing, and it's literally back to, he's on the same playing field as everybody else now. And the difficulty is what keeps everybody from not cheating, and from keeping them technology from not improving way over than it's supposed to.
So it should always take 10 minutes to find a block.
Yes,
always. And then Bitcoin itself, not anybody, any person or any centralized group controlling this, but Bitcoin as a protocol itself is modifying itself based on how powerful the mining hardware is.
Correct.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So it's smart. It knows when how to keep the balance, and that's also why the 21 million Bitcoins is pretty cool, because even though 21 million is the maximum, we're currently like on, I think, 13 million. Yep. But it's supposed to gradually increase, and in order to make sure that nobody can get all, like, go mine all those 12 million without everybody else, that the difficulty makes sure that it keeps steady and it's not going to change.
And I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but for everyone that doesn't know, so there's 21 million Bitcoins that can exist. 13 million of them are in circulation now. So just so everyone watching understands, like, how did people get those 13 million Bitcoins? Like, how are Bitcoins minted?
Okay. So originally it was Satoshi, the creator of Bitcoin, mined the first Genesis block, the first block, and then he mined 1 million Bitcoins, and then that was his, and he hasn't touched it since then. Nobody knows what he's doing. But the other amount, I think there's like 500,000 like Bitcoins or something that have been already like stolen and taken, but for the rest of them, they were all minted by miners. So every new Bitcoin that gets generated from now on is going to be a brand new minted Bitcoin from a miner and from a new block that gets created and cracked.
And then, okay, so Bitcoins go into circulation when miners put their processing power towards keeping track of the transactions and solving the blocks. And then people have nodes that are set up which help confirm transactions or verify transactions.
Verify, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then the block, once the block is actually solved, then it's confirmed. Oh, it's not even confirmed just yet. It's confirmed once the miners actually, start picking, okay, these are all the ones with fees on them. I'm going to confirm these first. And usually, like, with Tim Draper's 30,000 Bitcoins, I'm sure they put a little transaction fee because they wanted that 30,000 Bitcoins to go through without a problem. Yep. So
it's funny. So Tim has said that it took 30 minutes for the 30,000 Bitcoins to be sent.
Do you know how much his fee was?
I don't know.
I should ask him that.
Yeah, everybody watching, tweet at Tim Draper and say how much was the transaction cost for the 30,000 Bitcoins. Tell them that Chris and Matt sent you.
We want to know.
Yeah. So, like, Bitcoin mining is complicated, but not anymore because you just explained everything, and so we're all super smart now, which is awesome. But, like, what do you think the biggest, like, what's the scariest thing about Bitcoin mining? Like, someone that's heard about Bitcoin mining, but they haven't really spent the time yet to fully understand it. Like, what do you think that thing about Bitcoin mining is that kind of scares people maybe or confuses them?
I mean, the biggest thing I think that a lot of people have confusion over is just that there's computers doing it. And the interesting thing is that a lot of people, they like the fact that Bitcoin is secure and does all these amazing things, but they don't really understand how it works. And since the way it works is, I mean, none of these guys right now, all of them are incentivized to make money. That's all they're here for, and that's all they've been here for since the beginning.
The Bitcoin miners?
Yeah, Bitcoin miners. So their whole goal has always been to what is going to make me the most money, and that's why it eventually evolved from your laptop to a graphics card to an ASIC, is because they're always trying to figure out better ways to make money. But in that process, they've also separated a lot of the original infrastructure that was made. So, for example, mining pools, which is basically a bunch of miners coming together and then trying to solve a block in a group setting, and then they split the reward. That wasn't originally intended by the creator. It also, like, the way that I interact with the protocol is different. So when my miner's actually talking to a mining pool or trying to actually do the hashing, all those softwares, they're all open source. They're not supported that well. Like, none of the companies that are currently built off of Bitcoin are supporting it. None of the none of the mining companies are supporting it, and that's where, like, our company's coming in, where we're actually going to build that whole software layer out and have it secured. And because there are a lot of vulnerabilities, because it's the current infrastructure is not the same that was originally, secure for Satoshi. So a lot of those things, there's a lot of loopholes and ways to actually take money before it even hits circulation. And so there's a lot of good things about Bitcoin, but I feel like there's a lot more people who need to know more about the mining side, because that's the real innovation on Bitcoin is not necessarily that it's a digital currency, not that it's like that's cryptography and uses signatures. It's more that they kind of merged these different technologies together, and it actually created something that proof of work, which is I am proving that I'm basically guessing all these things, and it knows that I'm making these guesses, so I'm proving my work. And when I solve the hash, it knows how much I contributed to it. That is essentially the hugest innovation, I would say, and that's why it's a lot more interesting for like me. But there's a lot of, because there's not a lot of people who understand how it works and all the different layers that come through it, and the guys who are getting into it are just trying to make money off of it. Right. Nobody's really 100% paying attention to how that infrastructure that's being built. Everybody's just building on top of Bitcoin instead of the stuff that's under it. And I think that is probably the most insecure part, is that we need more companies, we need more people supporting the back side versus the top. Right. Yeah.
And it's, so basically you're going to be you're focused on making Bitcoin better.
Yeah. Want to make Bitcoin a lot better.
And hopefully everyone watching learned a lot about mining, and maybe someone out there decides that they're going to work with you and they'll work with your technology to make Bitcoin better, or they'll go make a new company. Maybe they'll go compete with you and force you to work faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anything, I think our main goal is to, if everybody understood how to do mining, if everybody understood the process of mining and was able to actually contribute to mining, I think it's actually way, way better, and it would actually secure the network a lot more, because there's now a lot more people who understand mining, and that this is the main thing that keeps Bitcoin secure. And if you can be involved by maybe not necessarily having to understand how everything works, but being able to just contribute a little bit of money or a little bit of computer power or whatever, you are now helping build this whole entire thing. You're a support of the network, and so our goal is to make sure that it's easy for everyone to do it at one point.
Right. Well, and now because they've heard about Bitcoin mining, you guys actually have a huge responsibility now, because someone has to do it. But thank you for explaining Bitcoin mining to us, and blocks and nodes and the ledger, and how it's not so different from what the banks were doing before, except for the fact that it's way better. and it's public.
Transparency.
And transparent. Yeah.
That's the best thing.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Bye, guys.